So now it's time to kind of establish an identity within the personal branding market, right? And before we start with that, I kind of want to go over what I would consider like the 6 most important personal branding mindsets to keep in mind throughout this journey, not only with the personal brand, but these things kind of help out in your life as a whole anyways. So I want to start with keeping it personal, right? A lot of people that are trying to develop a brand step away from the actual person behind it, right? We talked about the values, we talked about the character, and we talked about the trust that you're building with these people. And that comes from the person that you are, not some facade that you're putting out in order to try to impress these people. Focus on yourself and enable that to shine through the brand that you're creating, because that's what you know best and that's what you're going to be able to sell the best, right? The second one is embracing and documenting the process. A lot of people that I talk to feel like they don't want to like put themselves out there until they've perfected their brand. And that's something that like I understand it, but at the same time, the process that you're going through is something that other people can relate to and establish that relatability with your audience, and kind of grab them before you get to be like where you are is going to give you like the most loyal tribe that you can work with, right? And they're going to help you along with that process too. So I wouldn't go away from documenting this process of learning and understanding yourself better and being able to show that to people, right? The third one is produce as much as possible. You might not think you have a lot to produce right now, but honestly try to film yourself for an hour a day and just talk and see what happens. You'd be surprised with the amount of golden nuggets that you have within yourself that you just aren't aware of, because you're like, oh, I need to put out 60 seconds of powerful content right now. And at the end of the day, those 60 seconds might not be the most powerful that you can. If you just let yourself talk for an hour, you'll be able to pull 60 seconds at least of valuable information that you provided that came out of you just being in the flow state, just kind of talking about it and just kind of letting yourself flow with that creativity. The third or the fourth one is don't let what others think sway you. One big thing that I did when I was starting out was I wouldn't go after followers that I didn't think would like my stuff anyways. That's a big way of building a tribe. You might be like, oh, I want 10,000 followers, but if those 10,000 followers are like half sold on who you are, then it's important to like understand that that's the situation, and that when you go and you try to get them to do something, the influence you have on them and that influence grasp that you have isn't going to be as strong as if you had 1,000 people that really care about actually what you're talking about. So be able to establish that width versus depth and understand like what that kind of means in terms of what a personal brand and what that audience looks like, so that you have a better understanding of who's going to be following you. The fifth one is focusing on your strengths but acknowledging your weaknesses. The big thing with this is a lot of people hate to show that they have weaknesses when building a personal brand, because you want to come across as like knowing what you're doing. And like that's good, and you should definitely focus on that and make sure people know your skill set, make sure they know your values, make sure they know what you're good at. But also at the same time, kind of taking a step back and saying, well, I also have to be relatable, right? I can show that I'm not the best at this and I'm not the best at that, but at the same time, what that does is that means other people are going to understand that and be like, oh wait, like I'm not the best at that, like, oh, he's not some superstar, like he's a real person. It establishes like a humanity behind your personal brand and really brings in who you are as a person behind that. Everybody has weaknesses. It's not a bad thing. It's something that we should all acknowledge and be able to use to our advantage when it comes to building this personal brand. And the last one is paying it forward. Paying it forward has undoubtedly been the biggest success thing, like the biggest tactic that I've used for success in terms of like explosive growth in social media. That means coming in here and paying it forward to people and giving them as much value as possible, enlightening them, empowering them to do these things on their own. And what they'll do is they'll go and they'll spread the word even more to more people, but it'll all come back to you as a person, right? So embracing that, okay, maybe it's best for me just to like give as much value as possible to everybody and enable them to go and do this stuff and go be empowered and like make a difference in the world. Because what it'll do is when they get asked, hey, how did you do this? They'd be like, well, this guy I heard on Instagram really helped me with this journey, right? So being able to pay it forward really helps you in the long run. It might not give you those short-term things, but it's really important for having very big, impactful social growth in the long run. So keep those in mind as we're going through these next couple of videos. We're going to be talking about niches, values, and all these different things that are going to help you actually develop what your branding identity is. And when you have these things in mind, you'll be able to do it much better than if we gave it to you kind of cold turkey. So let's get started.